What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball. And more importantly, welcome back to the finale of our season preview series, the series where we're breaking down and will have broken down all 30 NBA teams before the start of the regular season. In these videos, we go extremely in-depth. We talk about everything from rotations to depth charts. What kind of assets do they have in terms of salary or draft capital? What did their offseason look like? Different trade ideas, everything that you need to be ready for the start of the regular season. We're rounding out this series with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they've got a pretty interesting roster to look at this year. So hey, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment on my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. Alrighty, let's get into it. Alrighty, y'all, as you can see, there is a lot to get into as per usual, and that's why we have our season preview spreadsheet here. For those of you that don't know, I like to build these spreadsheets to kind of help articulate or tell the story of what I'm talking about in my videos. I don't know, I just like building spreadsheets. If you guys want access to the spreadsheet, it's pretty simple. All you guys have to do is leave me a comment saying like, hey, I'd like access to the spreadsheet. And I want to clarify, because someone asked me in the comments, and it's a good question. You get your own copy, so you can do whatever you want with it. You can make your own stuff with it. You can use it for any team, whatever you want. But just leave me a comment saying like, hey, I'd like access to the spreadsheet. From there, I'll leave you a link to join my Discord, which is always in the description of all my videos anyway, but just know that it's there. Once you're on there, shoot me a DM saying, hey, I was one of those people that wanted a spreadsheet. I'll give it to you there. It's nice and simple. I get people on my Discord, I get comments, and you get a fun spreadsheet that you can play with. I've been giving it out to some people recently, and they've been enjoying it, so that's awesome. And if you want to post what you build on the Discord, we'll talk about it. Shout out to all you guys in the Discord. You guys have been awesome recently. But hey, let's talk about Cleveland. The Cavaliers had a really up and down season last year, didn't they? There were times where this team looked downright unbeatable, and then they had a lot of health issues and stuff like that through different points of the season. It felt like all their best players went down at some point. It felt like Mobley went down at one point, like Mitchell went out, and then like Mitchell came back, and like Garland was out. I don't remember the order that it was in. Jared Allen was out at points, and it was just like, oh my God, like this team's got a lot of talent. They just can't all stay together, and it's just kind of all over the place. And then they got to the playoffs and they kind of fizzled out, and there's been rumors like, hey, are they going to move Garland? Does it make sense to have Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell? Does it make sense to have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley? Like, there seems to be some redundancies here. So what do we do to take this team to the next level? And this team has a lot of questions going into this season, right? Like, I feel like a lot of us could put them as high as like a 4 seed, but as low as maybe like a 7 or 8 or something like that, right? I mean, we just don't know. This team has a lot of question marks, but looking back at last season, they were 48-34, very good record, right? I mean, they put up hell of a fight in the playoffs, which was awesome. If we're talking about franchise status, this team is definitely trying to win, right? They're contending. There are 4 different levels that I break people down into, unless you're like the Hawks or the Bulls, to which we get upset about them and we have to make our own franchise statuses for them. So we've got selling, rebuilding, growing, and contending. This is definitely a contending team. A lot of win now players. They're obviously trying to win basketball games. Let's talk about goals, because I always think it's an important thing to start talking about goals before we get into all the more fun tabs on this in this workbook. We can just keep them in the back of our minds then as we're discussing different things. First thing out is figure this first 5 out. The starting 5 has been a big controversy. It's not like who's starting and who's not. It's more so like, do these 5 even like work together? And primarily it's 4 people, right? It's Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Very similar players in terms of like position and everything. Is it redundant to have those? Should you move one to go get somebody at a different position? We're not sure. Then you have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley playing together, who, look, they're both very good basketball players, but like, is Jared Allen playing center holding back what could be a very elite Evan Mobley or something like that? Or who knows, maybe they should play together. We don't know. Maybe Evan Mobley shouldn't be on the team and we should have more of a wing to complement Jared Allen, because all these guys are very well accomplished already in their careers. Jared Allen's been an all-star. Like, Garland's like a borderline all-star player. Donovan Mitchell's obviously an all-star almost every year, and like, we think Mobley could get to that status. So it's like, okay, what are we doing here? And then Isaac Okoro's the other starter, but we need to figure out if this team can like win basketball games or not. And we'll dive into the lineup data and stuff and see what that's all saying, but that's the first question. Next thing, I think we need to find a defensive guard. We've got 2 smaller guards starting in Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. I'm concerned that when they get deep into the playoffs, they're going to face teams that have like a Jalen Brunson, right? They're going to have a Derek White and a Drew Holiday. They're going to have like these bigger, stronger guards that I don't know how these guys are going to like match up with. I feel like we need another option on this team, more of a defensive guard that can be paired up with either like Garland or Donovan Mitchell to kind of help supplement that in some way, or just have a defensive guard option that you can go to. So that's one thing I'd like to talk about. And then develop Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley, we think, is a really impactful player. Obviously, we see the defense and everything. We see the length. We know that teams want, or his team wants him to shoot the ball more. He doesn't get a ton of looks necessarily right now. We want him taking more threes and not existing around the rim so much. We want to see him develop. He's got a lot of skill. How can we do that? It's hard because there's 3 players that we already talked about that are like all-star level good, and he's not going to get as many touches. So how do we continue to develop him? That's going to be a big goal for them. But anyway, let's talk about their offseason because it was actually pretty brief. Yeah, this is the offseason right here. This has got to be the slimmest one that we've seen like this entire series, and that wasn't planned or anything. That's just how it worked out. So for those of you new to the series, I've got 3 different categories of players. I've got drafted players, which you can figure out what that one means. I have player departures, guys that were on the full-time roster at like the end of last season that are no longer on the full-time roster, and then players brought in. So guys from like other teams, maybe trades that happened or something, just some sort of player that was brought in from a different team. And obviously you guys are seeing there's nobody that falls into the players brought in thing. I don't think I'm missing anybody. I scrape Fanspo for things. It's missed people before. Corey Kispert, thanks a lot, Fanspo. Made me look dumb for a couple comments, but you know what? We caught it. We caught it in the video. But anyway, we do have a couple players to talk about here. We'll start off with the draft. They took Jalen Tyson with what I believe was like the 20th pick, 21st pick, somewhere around there, right? Jalen Tyson's coming out of California. He's going to be a wing. He's an interesting type of wing. He was a senior coming out of there. I was not the biggest fan of Jalen Tyson personally. Does that mean that I'm rooting for his downfall or anything? No, I hope all these guys succeed. Like I genuinely do. I want to see all of them have great success. Here's my thing with Jalen Tyson. We'll talk about what he's kind of known for first. Jalen Tyson was a very ball-dominant forward at California. And we're talking like his usage rate was like a Luka Doncic type thing. That dude had the ball and was in the game most of the time, right? And he's making things happen like off the dribble. He's getting penetration and stuff. Not with like a crazy amount of athleticism or anything like that, but he's working his way, getting to the rim. He's hitting some outside shots and stuff. You know, he's doing his thing. He's a point forward, right? He's making things happen for his team. What concerns me is statistically he was not that impactful not in California, but in college basketball until he got to California and they just gave him the ball for the entire game, right? And so he might be a guy that's extremely dependent on like having the ball the entire time. Because I mean, you watch him with film when he doesn't, he's not creating anything when he doesn't really have the basketball. I mean, he's a good rebounder for his size and everything. Like he's not a bad athlete. Like I wouldn't call him explosive. His handle's not good enough to probably be like an NBA ball handler. So on a team that has a Darius Garland and a Donovan Mitchell who primarily are going to have the ball a lot of the game, what does Jalen Tyson do? What is his role? I don't exactly know. Like, is he going to be a catch and shoot 3-and-D type of guy? That's not what we've seen out of him so far. So I'm a little bit concerned as to like how he's going to fit with this group. I mean, in Summer League, you saw him. I mean, he had the ball like the entire game and everything there too. It's just what he likes to do. So I'm curious to see if they put him in positions like that to succeed, because I don't like when teams do that when they draft these guys and then ask them to become a completely different person. That's not fair to them. Like, I hope the Cavaliers know that, like, this is what this guy's skill set is, and they're going to give him some opportunities to try and run it, which, again, I'm not sure he can do it at an NBA level. I would have skepticism of that in my experience with scouting and stuff, but that doesn't mean he can't accomplish it. So I hope they're giving him a chance to do so somehow, some way, if he's going to get on the court at all. Moving on to player departures, we'll cover this one pretty briefly. Marcus Morris Sr., no longer on the team. He was kind of just on there to be their wily vet, right? That's ready to fight someone at all times, and I love when teams have a guy like that. He's sitting in free agency right now. I don't think he's been picked up since then, has he? Oh, he's on an Exhibit 9 deal with the Knicks. That's right. I knew I saw his name in the last couple weeks, like recently. But no, Marcus Morris Sr. is gone from here, so they're missing that veteran kind of presence now on the back of the bench. And honestly, I do think that's something that's important for all teams to do. So maybe that's a way that, or something that they could add still. Then they lost Damian Jones, who's kind of just a reserve big. Not the most impactful. He'll be good for a run, jump, and dunk every once in a while, a pick and roll or something like that. Maybe block a shot every once in a while because he's a lengthier guy. But I wouldn't say he has a really defined skill set that really like attracts introduce him to potential suitors or anything like that in terms of basketball. So you didn't lose much in terms of player departure. And obviously you guys can tell by this screen, they maintained most of their roster, and they're like, no, let's run it back with this group. So that's what they're looking at for in terms of offseason. Let's go talk about the rest of the roster. Alrighty, y'all. Y'all know this is my favorite tab on the entire workbook. This is basically my ideal offseason spreadsheet, and I'll be looking forward to doing ideal offseason again this next offseason. It was a big thing for the channel and everything. But this sheet does a couple different things for us. Obviously, we can take a look at the current roster, what's everybody's salary situations and everything, right? Who are movable pieces? Who are tradable guys? And in order to do that, we have to know their salary cap situation. Like, where does this team sit in terms of its salary cap standings? What kind of restrictions does it have on it? We'll take a look at draft picks. What do their draft assets look like? What can they use to make moves? What do they want to keep? Things like that. And then we have a depth chart, right? So that we can take a look at the team in its entirety and be like, okay, what holes do we want to fill? What are we trying to fix, right? Everything from there onward. And I think the best place to start always is with the draft picks, because those are non-tangible assets, and it's good to get those out of the way. So, not many first round picks, right? We see that there's not a lot of first round picks going on here. Obviously, a lot of that was going out and getting, like, I feel like they might have done something to get Jared Allen at some point, or was that part of the Kyrie trade? I can't even necessarily remember. No, because Kyrie went from Boston, so I don't necessarily know. I don't necessarily know where a lot of them went, but I know a lot of them went to Donovan Mitchell, right? They moved quite a few over to Utah to go get Donovan Mitchell, and like, look, you do that, right? You do that to get a guy as good as Donovan Mitchell. I totally understand that. So first round picks are not something that are completely readily available to them right now. And I will say they will technically have more than this. It's just they have like protections on them, or they're swaps or something. So not really assets that are all that important to the Cavaliers right now. They just can't do much with them. They do have a good supply of second round picks, actually. And thankfully they have 2 for next season. And that's actually a pretty valuable thing. When we talk about the salary cap and like new aprons and everything, it's very important for teams to avoid the aprons like the Cavs have done right now. And we'll talk more about that. But a good way to do that is to take like second round players or end of the first round players that you can put at the end of your roster. They don't cost very much money, and they can be developmental things for you or whatever. So next year, and they've got expensive guys on this roster, they can bring in 2 guys from the second round or something that they can use second round exceptions on. They can sign them, put them at the back of their bench or something like that to help kind of balance out the salary cap situation, and maybe they turn into something one day. You don't know. But again, they've got other assets moving forward in other years, like they've got 2 2027, so maybe you could package some of those and go get like a role player that you need or something on a team like this for a contender. That's valuable. So overall, I think they're actually in a pretty good like draft asset situation. Would you love to have all the first round picks and all the talent? No. Like, we're not all going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder, so no, you don't get to do that. I'm not even giving you the option. There's only one team that gets to do that, and it's the Thunder. And that's just how it is. But anyway, let's talk about their salary cap situation. There's 4 different levels to the NBA salary cap. If you guys have been watching this series at all, you guys know where I'm going with this. I go into much more depth of these in the first like video or 2 in this series. That's a Celtics and Grizzlies video. So if you want really in-depth descriptions, go there. You should watch all my videos anyway, because why wouldn't you, right? You need something to do while you're drinking your coffee in the morning. You might as well do that. Here's my brief description of all the different levels. You've got the cap level first. Well, so once you cross that, you're not signing really any more players that either aren't your own or they're not minimum contracts. It's a pretty basic thing in sports, right? They have crossed it. That's why it's at 0. Luxury tax space is next, or luxury tax line is probably the best way to say it. I'm having trouble talking. It's Friday. I've got a wedding to go to after this. It's a whole mess in my head right now. They have crossed that line. What does that mean? Their team is going to be more expensive. Every year that you spend in luxury tax, it gets more and more expensive. So it's kind of like a fire waiting to go off. At one point, Golden State was paying like so much money to where if they traded someone making like $3 million, they were going to save like $30 million. It was crazy the amount of luxury tax they were paying. Then we have the aprons. These are newer things that the NBA has added to kind of make it harder for championship teams to exist and make trades. In essence, the NBA got sick of star players being traded all the time. It's not good for their bottom line or anything like that. It's not good for fans. Fans lose interest because people get traded all the time, a la like Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, like Kyrie Irving, guys like that, right? Like, those guys shouldn't be able to be traded that often. And so the NBA put in these aprons to say, okay, if you're a contending team, which presumably means you're paying a good amount of money, we're going to make it really, really hard for you to trade players, right? We're going to start putting restrictions on you. Like, you can only take in this much money. You can't package players together. You can't use these draft picks. You can't play in like the buyout market and stuff. So they've made it incredibly difficult for expensive teams to make moves. They kind of lock you down with what you have. They're like, okay, if you're going to go get one of these guys, you're going to be stuck with him for a while, so make sure you do it right. That's why the Bulls can't trade Zach LaVine now, because there's teams that are interested. They're like, but what if we mess up and we're just like stuck then and we can't move anymore because of the aprons? Well, that's the risk that you take nowadays. I'm personally a fan of it. I like it, but you guys can let me know what you think. The Cavaliers have avoided both of the aprons so far, so very good strategic roster building up to this point. It helps that guys like Jared Allen are on like one of the best contracts in the NBA. That's like average starter salary right there. Not for someone as good as Jared Allen. His contract is really going to bulk up in like the next couple of years. So you've got an advantage this for now, but eventually you're going to find yourself in these aprons. So take advantage while you're not in it, right? Go make the moves that you can now, because then you're going to get locked down with the roster you have. So they're in a great situation for that. They've got some good draft picks, but they're also incentivized to move now. So keep that in mind as we go throughout the rest of their roster. All right, so we've talked about them a little bit in this video already. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, one of the more talented backcourts that we'll see in the NBA. Extremely offensively gifted backcourt, right? Notice I didn't say defensively. This team struggles at times with its backcourt defense and stuff because they're smaller guys. There's only so much you can do. I actually think Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are actually like decently smart defenders. It's just sometimes you get bodied, right? Physics wins a lot of times at the end of the day, and there's some big guards out there. But offensively, it doesn't get much better than these two, right? They're high-level shot makers. They can score from just about anywhere. It's almost impossible to keep them in front of you. They are incredibly talented players. But what do they do when they're playing with each other is a big question, right? And that's something that a lot of people have been asking. When we look at like their on-off numbers and stuff, the team has a positive on-off with Donovan Mitchell, not with Darius Garland, which, look, if you're going to give somebody the ball on this team, you're going to give it to Donovan Mitchell first, which tells me Darius Garland would prefer to have the basketball in his hands, right? And it's kind of like a Trae Young, DeJounte Murray type thing that we saw where the Hawks were like, okay, this clearly isn't working. We need to move one of you. There's an argument to be made that you have to do the same thing here. I don't know who you trade Darius Garland to or what do you do with that, but I'm not going to hate you either if you say, no, these two have to figure out how to make it work, right? Like, these two guys are too talented. I want to keep them both. We have to find a way to make it work. We have to figure out a way to utilize these guys when they don't have the basketball in their hands. That's why you always hear me say, like, it's really valuable when you find a guy that's actually good without the basketball. That's part of what makes Giannis so good, right? It's an important thing. It's actually why Kyle Kuzma's so available, or why he's so valuable to a lot of people as well, because he's one of the best non-ball dominant players out there. Unfortunately, the Wizards give him the ball a lot, and he makes a lot of mistakes then, but he's really smart without the basketball, and that adds value to him. So what do you do with these guys and all their talents? I don't know, but I mean, you just look at the numbers, right? Almost 27 a game from Mitchell, 18 points a game from Darius Garland. You got good three-point shooters in both of them, and it comes in a high clip, right? I mean, you're getting good playmaking from both of them, 6+ assists for both of them. Turnovers a little bit high, but when you're that ball dominant, you know, kind of tends to happen a little bit more, but we'd love if they could cut it down. But man, you got good players. Jared Allen, we talked about him a little bit. Borderline all-star player. He's the ultimate. He's like one of those like all-star role player type dudes where, like, if you get him right around the rim, his baby hook is going to be amazing, right? That's what he's going to do. Otherwise, he's really trying to dunk on people, catch alley-oops. He blocks a lot of shots, gets rebounds. Like, he's just a dirty center, right? Like, that's what he does. He mucks things up for you, and he just plays with a ton of energy. I love Jared Allen. He has a calm, cool demeanor. Ever since he got into the NBA, I was like, yeah, this guy's going to be a dude. And Texas produces just like a lot of good centers, so there you go. We really like Jared Allen. I'd like to find a way to keep him, and that's why we're skipping one guy, and or actually two guys, and we're gonna talk about Evan Mobley a little bit as well, because Evan Mobley could also be a center that could do all of those things, and maybe he could also space the floor and be a little more mobile with the basketball. Evan Mobley has a ton of potential. He reminds me a lot of a young Chris Bosh, but again, we just talked about 3 high-level players that are in front of him, so he doesn't get the chance to touch the ball a whole bunch, but you hear his teammates always saying, no, Mobley, you got to go get the ball more. You got to be more aggressive. Like, you got to do things like that, because the defense is awesome, right? He's one of the best defenders that we have. Like, he's super long, super lengthy, blocks shots. He can go out on the perimeter and guard people if you need him to. Mobley's awesome. But are we putting people in the way? Should we move a Jared Allen and go get like a wing or something like that, or some other role players that Mobley can just play as center and he can develop more? It's hard to say. You got all this talent that's kind of like butting heads with each other. I don't know. It's a weird situation to be in. Karis LeVert, last year of his contract, just really good bench score, can handle the ball. He's a secondary ball handler type of guy. When we look at his percentages last year, this is where we start to worry a little bit. The three-point shot has been falling for him. We're down to 32%, and he takes quite a few of them, so there's a big efficiency problem here with Karis LeVert. Let's actually pull up his shooting chart. So here's Karis LeVert's shooting chart. Overall, it's a pretty good-looking shooting chart in terms of like where he's getting his shots from. It's pretty analytically sound. He's taking a lot of the threes. He's getting to the rim. He's getting floaters up and stuff once he's in the paint. We're not seeing a lot of these mid-range shots. That's awesome. That's what we want to see, but we're just not converting them at a huge clip right now. And I mean, we're going to give Karis LeVert a lot of shots because, I mean, this is a good basketball player. This is a guy that historically could get you 20 points if you really need him to on any given night. But I mean, right now, he's getting you 14 points a game. He's even contributing to the assists as well, which is awesome. He's getting a good amount of rebounds. He's getting you steals. Like, the defense is a little bit questionable at times, but it's not bad by any means. But we need the efficiency to go back up if we want this team to take its next step. Max Strus, a guy that was coming out of Miami. He was one of those Miami Diamond finds, right? I mean, he had a good season for them overall last year, but again, maybe a little bit questionable on the efficiency. Max Strus is supposed to be a sharpshooter. That's what he does, right? And he plays hard defense. I won't always say it's the most effective defense, but he's definitely playing really hard. Like, that's really easy to see in the film. So Max Strus was not quite as effective from three as we wanted him to be. 35 is respectable, right? But when you're taking 7 of them a game, you're supposed to be a sharpshooter. We need you up and around that like 38-ish%. And first year on a new team and everything, a lot of injuries, things like that. It can be hard at times, but I like Max Strus a lot as a player. A little bit of an undersized wing, if we will. Maybe he could play the 2 for them at times, but you've got other guys that need to be playing that position, so it's hard, but Max Strus is a nice player. Isaac Okoro, who just recently got his new contract with the team. They were kind of waiting a little bit to get it signed. Nice 3-and-D player. Again, a little bit undersized to be a wing. He's only about 6'5", but he's got a long wingspan, and we know he's a good defender. Like, he gets up and in front of people. He can guard the other team's best player. That's what he does, and he got his 3-point shot up. I mean, we look at it, 9 points a game, almost 10 points a game, and he got up to 39%. He's working on his game. We're seeing development from this guy. We're hitting at a higher clip, and some of that just comes with age, right? I mean, development happens when you're playing in the NBA every day if you're working hard behind the scenes, so that's awesome. He's not going to contribute much else though on the court. He kind of just is that 3-and-D guy for you, which that's important, right? It's important to have a guy like that, so that's awesome. Talking about Georges Niang, he's an interesting one. Definitely got the most interesting build in the NBA, doesn't he? And I'm not trying to body shame or anything like that, so I don't want to see any comments about that. I'm just going to comment with a laughing emoji if that's the case. But 3-point shooting forward. That's the best way I can put it for him. He got up 38% on like 5 attempts a game. This team was taking threes, man, which is good. They've got some shooters on this team, and you should take advantage of that if you can. Definitely questions about like who he can guard or whatever. I love the toughness and the attitude that he brings, so I like the fit of him that way. I feel like plus minus wise, I haven't even looked at his numbers, but I feel like he's not actually contributing to winning at points. And I've got the on-off numbers here. Like, let's just even take a look together. I can't imagine that Georges Niang is a positive. No. So when he's on the court, they're a plus 0.3. When he's off, they're a plus 4.7. So we have a negative 4.4 differentiation. Yeah, it just feels like he doesn't fit in whatever offense that they're running at times. And again, his lack of mobility is going to always hurt him in that way. But is what it is. He is a 3-point shooting forward, which is a nice option to have when you want to take either Jared Allen or Mobley off the floor. He can pair with both of them, so I get the idea. Dean Wade, I bet you on the other hand, Dean Wade has a crazy plus minus in the terms of like a positive. Where do we got? On the court, plus 10. Off the court, minus 0.3. Plus 10.4 differentiation. Dean Wade's awesome. I like Dean Wade and what he does. He just feels like he's one of those dudes that understands his role. 3-point shooting, wing. That's what he does, and he gets his shots up. Defensively, I'm going to have some questions at time, but he's pretty strong and he's pretty big, so like that alone is going to help you out sometimes if you have the right players around you and you got good rim protectors. That might be all you need. Dean Wade maybe needs to get on the floor a little bit more, because what are we getting? We're getting 39%. Yeah, Dean Wade might be a wing that we need to get on the floor a little bit more, but there's other guys like in front of him. So I don't know. I feel like they're going to go to Niang more than Wade, but maybe some Cavs fans that have watched a few more games than I have other opinions. Talked about Jalen Tyson already. Tristan Thompson's back on the team, so that's cool. I mean, they brought him on last year. He's going to be their vet on the team. Hopefully doesn't bring any Kardashians around or anything. I don't actually care. I don't know. I'm just trying to make jokes. Leave me alone. Tristan Thompson's going to be out there to grab rebounds when he's out there. That's what he does. He's a little bit old at this point, is what it is. Ty Jerome is on the team still. That's the best way of putting that one. I mean, if we go to Ty Jerome, played in 2 games, got you 2 points. Historically, he's not the most efficient basketball player in the world, but he's a reserve guard for you and he's cheap. So you know what? That is what it is. Sam Merrill was out there a lot last year to try to hit some threes when they were desperate to make some in the playoffs, and he wasn't exactly hitting those always, and his plus minus got a little bit weird, I have to imagine, at points too. But if you look at Sam Merrill, 8 points a game, 40% three-point shooter in the regular season last year, so that is an option for him there. He's a little bit smaller of a guard, not going to be the greatest defensively, but is what it is. Here's one of the most interesting players on the team, and we'll talk about options and stuff in a second. Craig Porter Jr. Craig Porter Jr. was a guy that when all these injuries were happening, he was brought on the team or whatever. I can't remember if he was a call up from the G League or not, but all of a sudden, dude was like hooping for them for a minute. And, you know, by the end of the season, like, you know, his minutes got a little bit more sporadic and stuff, and some of the efficiency fell off because of that, and that's to be expected, right? But like, dude had some pretty quality like basketball minutes for them at points last season as another point guard. And I mean, I haven't looked at much of his defensive numbers or anything like that, so I won't speak on that too much. But offensively, dude was creating and stuff. So Craig Porter Jr. is an interesting guy to watch. When we look at this, Dean Wade, not his full contract isn't actually guaranteed. So if you wanted to cut him, you could save a bit of money. I wouldn't recommend that. Sam Merrill, none of his contract's guaranteed, so you could lose him at any point. And then Craig Porter Jr., only $1 million of the 1.8 is actually guaranteed, but I have to imagine you keep him. You do have one open roster spot still, and you could sign up to like the highest of free agents right now to a minimum, and you're still not going to enter the first apron. So that's good to know. I don't know who you'd go out and get right now that's in existence. I mean, maybe the Markelle Fultz or something like that, and then you try to do something with Ty Jerome, but then that could potentially put you in the apron, so I don't necessarily know that you want to do that. I don't know why Ty Jerome's whole contract is guaranteed. Shout out to his agent. But I don't know. It still feels like they're missing like a bulkier defensive point guard or something like that. So we'll try to explore a trade where maybe we can find something like that for them. But otherwise, this is the team, man. Let's look at the depth chart. So we got Garland, right? We have a question mark in Craig Porter, and then we got Ty Jerome at the shooting guard, which again could also be a point guard for them, in Donovan Mitchell. And then we've got some good options coming off the bench. Sam Merrill's a nice reserve guard. Karis LeVert, we know he can get buckets. At the small forward spot, we've got a lot of interesting players. We like Okoro and what he's able to do for this group. Strus is a nice option. Then you have a first-round pick rookie in Jalen Tyson. We'll see where he fits into things. At the forward spot, I love the options. Mobley's amazing, and Niang and Wade can provide value. We looked at the stats, though. Dean Wade is much more impactful, so you guys tell me who should be getting minutes between these guys, because we'll talk about it when we get to rotations. I'm going to make a case for Dean Wade right now, but I think historically it's Niang, right? But anyway, and then at center, you got Jared Allen. Mobley can play there as well, but you have Tristan Thompson as another option. I like having the vet on the team. So that's what we're working with. We've talked about assets and everything. Let's go make up some mock trades or something like that and see what we can't add to this team to try to make them better. Alrighty, y'all, we're back here on Fanspo. Always love hopping on Fanspo and drawing up some trades and everything. We got anybody from Cleveland that's appearing on the trending page at all that we should be trying to trade? No, not necessarily. They're not a topic of conversation at this very moment, apparently. But anyway, so we're the Cavs. I want to try and get like another point guard on the team, which seems kind of crazy, but I need another option at point guard. And I actually think that there's a way that we could do this with the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets are still semi-selling, right? They're trying to accumulate assets and stuff. They're trying to get rid of contracts that they don't need at this point. I think that we could do something here. I want Dennis Schroeder on this team. I know Dennis Schroeder wants to be a starter and everything. That's his whole thing. And he's a good starter in the NBA. Like, he's a solid basketball player, but I'd also really love having Dennis Schroeder, like, come off this bench and maybe we pair it with another move or something like that. Because Dennis Schroeder can play defense. He's a very good, like, offensive basketball player in the sense of he can create for himself and things like that. You could have a crazy depth chart there. And I don't think it'd be that hard to go and get him. So let's start off with Dennis Schroeder going over to the Cavs. We don't have many restrictions working against us, which is good because, again, there's no aprons affecting either of these teams. I think we could do something with like Georges Niang, and then let's just say it's like, man, do we go with like a Max Strus or something like that? Is that too much money? That's probably a bit too much money. I mean, hell, we could even just make it like, I'm not going to do Jalen Tyson necessarily, but like, let's just say it's Ty Jerome or something like that. Is that enough? I mean, are we just willing to sell a little bit? Because, I mean, you get off his contract right away, you save a little bit of money in the short term, and then what? Do we just, like, load them up with, like, second-round picks? Because what do they have for 2025 seconds? They've got a couple. They don't have any of their 2027 like seconds or anything, so we could throw like both of those like their way or something. This might be like a 3 second round pick type of thing here. I don't know. Do you like, I feel like there's like a framework here. I don't know. I don't think this is like perfect by any means, but for video's sake, I think it's an interesting conversation. So you guys let me know at this one. Let's draw up a little bit more of a fun one. All right, let's just say we did want to trade one of the guards or something like that. I feel like we have to explore both options, right? Let's just say we wanted to trade one of the guards. I feel like a team that would be interested is the Spurs. Like, if you're going to trade one of them, you're probably going to trade Garland, right? Donovan Mitchell's just extremely valuable. Let's say we wanted to trade Darius Garland to the Spurs or something like that, right? Who are we taking back? It has to start off with Keldon Johnson, right? We have to start off with taking him back. He's the salary and everything. He's an interesting player. We've seen him score 20 points per game in the NBA before, but what else would we really want from them to make this happen for a Darius Garland? Are we taking a Sohan or something like that? I don't necessarily know. Like, where are we at salary-wise? This might just work. No, they need to cut another $10 million-ish from it. Is that where, like, no, we don't really want Zach Collins. I'd prefer not to have to pay that money. That's too much long-term money we're locking up in a team that's about to get more expensive. And like Sohan itself, like, isn't gonna work all by itself. Yep, because that's not enough money. So, and I don't necessarily think they would give up Sohan. Well, for Darius Garland, you might, honestly. Like, Darius Garland is pretty damn good. So, okay, so let's just say, because you got to give him someone valuable, right? So, like, these two players for an all-star level type point guard that's more on the age range of Wembanyama, like, no, that's actually more than fair. And then what, we throw, like, Blake Wesley into it as well? Like, he goes over to Cleveland. I mean, again, you're locking yourself up into a little bit more salary. Some of these guys are a little bit cheaper, though, so I don't know. So you start off with that. You need to cut another $2 million still. Okay, so it can't be Wesley. I do these things in real time with you guys, all right? So just calm down. So who else are we giving up then? We can't package that many more players together, so I don't think they're giving up like a Harrison Barnes or something like that, are they? So is this a world where we are taking back like a Blake Wesley and like, no, we're not going to be able to make this work. I don't know how we're going to make this work, honestly. So no, but this one's not as easy as I would have thought it was going to be, unless you're including like a Devin Vassell or something like that. So I don't know. That one's a little bit more complicated. So no, I think there's a failure in this one. What's another team we could make this work with? Orlando needs a point guard, so we send Darius Garland over there. What do we want back? We want a guy that can play off Donovan Mitchell then as more of a point guard. Is this a way where we make a Zach LaVine trade work? Maybe this is just the Bulls fan in me trying to make something work. We take back more money, so he comes back to Cleveland, right? How else do we really like build onto this to make this happen? We're going to salary dump things to the Bulls. So you're going over there to the Bulls, that's for sure. Then just tell me where we're at right now. So they need to cut another 16-ish million. They need to cut another 6 million. Okay, I can make that happen. Where did Niang go? You're on your way to the Bulls. That's totally fine. The Bulls are just willing to take on whatever salary you're going to pay us in like some sort of pick or something like that, but probably not that much because we're asking you to take on a good amount of salary. Still, what else are they giving up in this deal? They've got to give up like a young guard or a young player that's kind of interesting. We don't need a point guard, so they're going to give up Jet Howard in this one. And how much do we still need to cut? Still another 11 million. Okay. So who is that? That's going to be Mo Wagner. Interesting. We can't trade that many people, though, so how's this going to work? Okay, I made it work. Does this make any sense at all? I can't even comprehend at this point. The Cavs got Zach LaVine, and they got Goga Bitadze. They got another big man out of it. The Magic got Darius Garland for giving up Cole Anthony, Jet Howard, and Goga, and a first-round pick. I'd say that's pretty fair, honestly. The Bulls lose out on Zach LaVine, and they're getting Karis LeVert, Cole Anthony, Jet Howard, some people to try out and make salary work, and they get a first-round pick. Not the worst trade in the world, I'd say. Not the worst trade in the world at all. And then I have to do the obvious one here, just as a precautionary last one, because I know somebody will bring it up. I don't want the Pelicans here yet. Let's do Cleveland. Let's do the Pelicans. There's an obvious swap that can happen right here between Brandon Ingram coming over here and like a Jared Allen, just in case you did want to trade him. Like, I don't think this works entirely in and of itself. You need to cut another 16 million still because of Jared Allen's contract. So that's when you throw like Max Strus over to the Pelicans or something like that, and that's probably still not quite enough. Okay, no, that actually does work, and then maybe they just send back like one cheap guy back or something as well. I don't know. Maybe they send back like a Jose Alvarado or something back as well. Maybe not. That's probably too much, but you know, something along the lines of something like this is is a way that you can get something done. If you're going to lose a guy like Jared Allen, you almost never get that type of talent back. So if you can in Brandon Ingram, it's not a bad idea. But anyway, let's move on to rotations. All right, so here we are on the rotation screen. You know, I always put a question mark on these because I never know what they're actually going to do with rotations. This is just an activity to kind of be like, okay, where do we want minutes to kind of average out at throughout the season? And if we look at our starting five, I've got Garland and Mitchell playing a lot of minutes. There are two probably best players that we have, right? I mean, it's not far afterwards that we get to more really good players, but need them playing a lot of minutes, and we need them to learn how to play together. So we got to put them on the court for a while. 33 minutes. Isaac Okoro kind of being that extra starter. 28 minutes, very solid amount. Mobley and Jared Allen, same thing. Got to learn how to play together. 32 minutes for them. Six-man Karis LeVert, awesome. Max Strus is probably just as valuable, so we're going to give him the same minutes. And then we get into our stretch guys here that, again, I don't know how to differentiate them, so they both get 16 minutes here between Niang and Wade. But I can make an argument that this should more so be like 19, and this should be more so like 13. So take that as you will. And then we got Craig Porter as another point guard option just in case you need him here. I could justify this team being a 9-man rotation, and I'd be happy to do so, but curious to hear what you guys think at the end of the day. Then we have Jalen Tyson here. He'll fight to try to get some minutes, and you got Merrill, Tristan Thompson, Ty Jerome, one spot left for whoever else you want to sign. If we go and look at their actual lineup data, right, this is where things start to get interesting. This lineup here was one of their most used lineups last year. It was a plus 22. It was Donovan Mitchell with Max Strus, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, and Jared Allen. We told you guys Dean Wade was a pretty impactful player for them. That makes sense. Darius Garland was not on the court for them. We found that he was actually a negative, not a negative, but he wasn't as positive when he was on the court, right? So having Donovan Mitchell as the point guard with spacers, Dean Wade, and just Jared Allen, that was effective for them. Another pretty effective one with decent minutes was Darius Garland, Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, Niang Mobley, a very similar thing. So Garland playing with Mobley and shooters was effective. So Mobley and Jared Allen not together, Garland and Mitchell not together. There's something to say about you can always just have one of these lineups on the court together and you should win a lot of basketball games, and that's great. You'd also like your star players to be able to play well together, because here's one that had the most minutes, right? This was Garland, Mitchell, Strus. This was a starting lineup they went to a lot with Mobley and Jared Allen. It was still positive, but not nearly as much. And then we have a negative lineup here with a lot of minutes, which was Garland with like Karis LeVert, Niang, Okoro, and Allen. Interesting that Garland seems to play better with Mobley. I'll be curious to see if that's still reflected as we go down to like 2-man combinations here. Donovan Mitchell played well with Strus. Strus was another really positive guy here. Jared Allen with Donovan Mitchell. Again, we saw that those two were a good pairing together. When's the first time that we see like Garland and Evan Mobley? Where does that one come up? Garland and Mobley, yeah, that one had quite a few minutes, and it was a positive as well. Not as much as Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen. So interesting thing to note there. Garland and Jared Allen, though, yeah, not quite as effective. I mean, where's Mitchell and Mobley? Also not as effective. So it's interesting how they kind of pair together in that way, right? I mean, so Mitchell and Allen should be together, and Garland and Mobley should be together. That's so interesting, but they don't seem to work. Like, it's still positive, but it's not nearly as productive when all of them are together. It's such a weird circumstance that I'm curious to hear what you guys think. But anyway, let's get on to rotations. And Derrick Rose and everything. Derrick Rose. Just a quick shout out to the retirement of my favorite basketball player ever, man. We'll miss you, Rose. Alrighty, y'all. Here we are. The last reveal, right? And I mean, let's not waste time. We're going to click here. I've got the Cavs as a 6 seed, right? I mean, wasn't a surprise. They were the only team left. So we now have a complete Eastern Conference look as well with the Celtics and Knicks clear here at the top. Haven't seen many people fight that. I'm sure there's going to be debates between the Bucks, Sixers, Pacers, Cavs, like Heat, maybe even throw the Magic into there. Like those teams, I can see all of them being pretty interchangeable. I really can. I see like the Raptors and Hawks in kind of like their own little set here. Maybe you could fit the Bulls and Hornets into that grouping as well. Like I could see the Bulls and Hornets finding ways to maneuver into those spots. So yeah, and then I haven't seen anybody argue with me about the Pistons, Wizards, and Nets. And a lot of people have said, yeah, Pistons definitely above Wizards, Nets. So I'm glad we're in agreement about those. But hey, that's it, y'all. We did the series. We made it through the dark ages. By the time you're watching this and kind of finishing this out, like media day's right around the corner. Preseason's right around the corner. We're here, right? It's time for basketball again. So we're going to get back to regular content and everything, talking about different things. You guys send me your ideas as always, but for now, send me your comments about the Cleveland Cavaliers. What are you thinking about this season? As always, keep it respectful down there. Otherwise, I hide you and you don't get to be on the channel anymore. But hey, appreciate it, guys. I know this wasn't like the most views for a series ever. I did this because I thought it'd be a cool activity for all of us to have some basketball content each and every day during the slow point of the season. So hey, thank you guys for sitting with me each and every day, and I look forward to bringing you guys content more throughout the rest of the season. So hey, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.